My name is Soren, and I'm transgender. Hey Cowboy by Silas Denver Melvin. When you were little, you used to tell people you wanted to be a cowboy. Someone always answered back, "You mean cowgirl," but you knew what you meant. Cowgirl never had the same ring to it. Many times in my life, I've been told by well-meaning people, being trans isn't all you are, you're so much more. And maybe they're right in some ways. I'm a poet, I'm an activist, and I'm a cat owner. But I'm also a trans poet, a trans activist, and yes, I suppose you can say I'm a cat owner too. Being trans isn't my only identity, but it is a part of my identity. It shapes many facets of my life that I wouldn't be able to claim if I wasn't trans. My love of art and poetry, because I can be who I want. My love of fiction and sci-fi, because there's an actual representation in that media. My love for music, because the beats and the melodies and the genres can capture my gender. These are all parts of me that I wouldn't be so deeply connected to without my trans identity. My wish for the world is for children, like me, trans children, to have similar, if not better, opportunities as me. I want them to be poets too, not just trans poets, but also trans poets. I want them to experience works from the trans poets, authors, and musicians before them, and allow them to hope for their own art to be welcomed into the world like I did. Part of my story is my experience growing up transgender. I have not always known I was transgender. Contrary to popular belief, there is no universal trans experience. Many people say they had a feeling when they were young, girls being tomboys, and boys playing princess. I did not have that. Although I didn't like dresses and I was a bit of a tomboy, I still thought of myself as a girl and expected to be treated as one. Instead of an early inkling, I felt as though I woke up one day and something was different. Like everything clicked into place all at once and shifted something else too. This change was sudden, but still took a couple of tries to figure out, and to be honest, I'm still figuring it out. One of my favorite poets put this into words for me. You wake up one morning and your mattress is on fire. Your body is a wild animal howling under the sheets. You wake up one morning and owe the world everything. Your quarters fall out of your pockets and roll into storm drains. It wasn't like this before, you just woke up one morning and knew something had changed. This is a selection of lines from the poem When Did You Know You Were Trans by Silas Denver Melvin, now one of my favorite and most influential poets. Melvin is a transgender poet from New Hampshire, and when I read their poetry about grit, I cried. To be so openly vulnerable and transgender in my art was a thought I had only given credit to in dreams. That is what I wish for the trans children after me. I hope for their comfortability in creating art that encompasses a part of them, but does not eclipse the meaningfulness of their art. That is what I strive for. When I first came out as transgender, my acceptance was easy. My parents worked on it, my siblings corrected themselves, and my friends tried their best. But it wasn't perfect. I couldn't tell my grandparents because they wouldn't understand. I had to bite my tongue around my peers who misgendered me because I wasn't confident I could say anything. I don't pass very well because I don't dress very masculine. Many people hear my pronouns but ignore them for my long hair and my tendency to wear skirts. As I grew up, my trans identity stayed, but my experience changed. I started writing about being trans. I did this not only to find a way to express myself, but to show the world that I had a right to exist when they tried to say I didn't. My writing was my safe space to prove my transness was okay and the perfect way for me to live. But my art couldn't stop the world I had to watch around me. I, a transgender teenager in rural New Hampshire, watched in horror as state bills rolled through our Congress, and although they might not have passed yet, the sinking feeling of knowing that if too many people say I, and if too many raise their hands, I cannot use my own pronouns. I cannot use my name, and I cannot transition when I am a legal adult. It's utterly terrifying. I want nothing more than the generation after me not to have to feel the same. But worse even is the at-home politics, the town politics to be exact. Listening to taxpayers who claim they only want the best for kids scream about banning LGBTQ+ books from schools because they harm the children makes me weep for future generations. How are they supposed to exist in a world where we allow for the restriction of media that proves they have the right to live? They don't. That is the simple, unfortunate, and stone-cold truth. 82% of trans teens have considered suicide, and 42% have attempted. We do not provide a safe world for them to exist in. That is why I started my LGBTQ+ activism journey. I needed to see a world where they are safe, where we are safe, now, in the future, and forevermore. With the New Hampshire Youth Movement and its specific branch at my school that my friend created, I began more activism in my life. I had attended more school board meetings, wrote more emails to our governor and representatives, overall tried to be the most involved with our school and state politics as I could. This is important to me because above all, I want safe communities and worlds for the trans kids after me. That is what I want my activism to change in the world, and that is what I will not stop until we get. My love of creativity and art is a way for me to express myself about these issues and to show in the world, while also showing fellow trans people it is okay to be trans and that they are loved. Although my future career isn't going to be activism, I'm never going to give up the fight. I will be 30 and still going to pride parades, and 40 still holding my partner's hand, and 50 still calling my politicians, and 60 still writing trans poetry. My point is, I'm trans now, and I'm always going to be trans, and I'm always going to try and protect our rights because that's what we deserve. Identities are expansive and ever growing, but my trans identity is a part of me that affects every bit of my life, every meeting, every conversation, and every word. So I ask you this as a conclusion. Who are you? Are you a poet? A trans poet? A cis poet? Not a poet at all, but in fact some other expansive and ever-growing identity you claim as your own? We all have our own identities. That's just what being human is like. What you do with them and how we wield them, however, is up to us. As a trans poet, trans activist, and you guessed it, trans cat owner, I will always be these things from now on and through the future, because I will hold, claim, and cherish this identity because this is me. And it always will be. It might fluctuate or change, but no matter what, I'm me, and I love me, and I'm showing society it needs to love me too. I'm going to leave you with this, a quote from my own poetry, and a poem about society's view on how trans people are supposed to act. Now sit with this, these two questions, and mull them over. Who are you? And is this society what we want, current, upcoming, and forever to be trans generations to have to live in? Smile into the eyes of the elders and don't meet the eyes of the youngers. You are a danger. Don't let the idea cross your mind again. But what if it hurts not to be myself? You really mean to say that after all that, you are going to be the kind of trans who still wants to change? My name is Soren, and I am transgender. Thank you.